Howdy, howdy, hi, hi. Let's talk about quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. So I have my homie Yoda here. We'll use quotes from Yoda to practice with the quoting, summarizing, and paraphrasing. Um, so anytime you quote, paraphrase, or summarize a source, somebody else's words, somebody else's content, you're still going to give them their credit, and that means you're going to cite the source. We'll do a little bit of the citation practice here, and then we'll do more practice as we go along. So quoting is using the person's or the source's words word for word, and you put them in quotes in your paper, which indicates that you're using it word for word. Paraphrasing is putting the source's words in your own words. And summarizing is basically just giving the main idea or the main ideas of a big chunk of what the source says or talks about. You want to quote if what the source is saying is exactly what you want your audience to hear or to know. When you quote, you're attributing that piece of evidence directly to that source. And that's kind of the best kind of evidence you can give right out of the source's mouth. When you paraphrase, if what the source is saying is complicated, like how Yoda speaks, you can put it in your own words and you still give credit to the source. And with summarizing, if the source says a whole lot of stuff and you just want your audience to know the main point of what your source said, or the main points if they gave more than one main point, then you're going to summarize it, but you're still going to give the source the credit for that information because it came from their brain and or whatever, their research or whatever, and you're going to share it with other people because that's where you got it from, or you even got the idea to share it. So let's look at some Yoda quotes. Bam, here we go. So this first one we're going to quote. And when you have a quote, when you use a quote, the quote itself shouldn't be the entire sentence. So what I mean by that is the whole sentence where your quote is should have some kind of setup. Yoda says, do or do not. There is no try. Bam. So in this sentence, we put the source in the sentence. We name the source in that sentence. So in MLA, as long as in that sentence you name the source, you're all good. So if we were to say, he says, do or do not, there is no try. Then at the end of that sentence, in parentheses, we have to name the source. Bam. And the period goes after the parenthetical citation. So how do you know what to put in those parentheses? How do you know what naming the source, what constitutes naming the source? I'm glad you asked. So anytime you're using a research style, we're going to use MLA here, you have to have a good resource. One of the best resources is the Purdue OWL. That's what I use. That's what all the researchers that I know use. And so let me show you the Purdue OWL. And I'm in the MLA section of Purdue OWL. And for the works cited page, Since we did interviews in class, we are going to use other common sources since it's not an electronic source. It's not coming from a periodical. It's not coming from a book. Other common sources, and here we have personal interviews. And you'll just copy that format. And let's go back to our page. So like on our works cited page, our works cited page, if I interview Yoda, Yoda doesn't have a last name, I don't think. If I interview Yoda, let's say 16 January 2020. I have not written 2019 yet. Proud of myself. All right, so it would say Yoda, personal interview, 16 January 2020. Yours would say the name of the person you interviewed, last name, comma, first name, period, personal interview, the date that you interviewed them. So in your works cited entry, the very first word, the very first thing there is usually a last name. That's going to be what you use to identify how you should cite your information within your paper. And that's because, so if I look at this parentheses, this citation here, it says Yoda, I should be able to go to the works cited page in alphabetical order, go down to the Y's, and the first word I see should be Yoda. And then I look where the information came from. So that's how you know what to put as a citation, what constitutes a good citation. So that's a quote. Always has a setup. Yoda says, do or do not, there's no try. He says, do or do not, there is no try. Citation Yoda, period, at the end. For the paraphrase, so this second quote from Yoda is a bit more complicated. It's not spoken, Yoda doesn't speak in like standard English grammar. So it says, when you look at the dark side, careful you must be, for the dark side looks back. If I want to paraphrase that, I could say, Yoda says to be careful looking at the dark side because it looks back. You say it looks back at you. Yeah, let's say that because it looks back at you. Yeah. And I have Yoda in the sentence where I'm borrowing information, so that constitutes the citation. Or we can say, you need to be careful looking at the dark side because it looks back at you. And since I got that thought from Yoda, I'm going to quote him, I'm going to cite him at the end of that sentence. Yep. And Yoda, works cited page, will say Yoda. And for the summary, this quote is a little bit longer, so I could summarize it. Yoda says in his quote, he says, "Soon I will rest, yes, forever sleep. Earned it, I have. Twilight is upon me. Soon night must fall." And my summary could be, Yoda tells us that he's about to die and he's earned it. Summary. So quotes are exactly word for word what the person says or what the source says. Paraphrases are about usually a little bit shorter, but they're about the same length as the original quote, but they're just in your own words so that you can get the information across to your audience better, make it more easily understandable. And summaries are very shortened versions of the main quote, what the source says. Just give them the main idea of what they said and move on. So that's how that's how you quote, paraphrase, and summarize, including the citation for it.